2017, Ouagadougou, a university auditorium. A young Burkinabe student stood up in front of the French president and asked a simple question. Why does our university have no electricity? Emmanuel Macron's answer became one of the most watched moments in modern African political history. He told the student it was not France's job to fix their light bulbs, that it was the job of their president. He even joked that the Burkinabe president had slipped out to go fix the air conditioning. The room laughed nervously. Africa did not. That moment lit a fire that has been burning ever since. And today, the man who inherited that broken, unlit university, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has sent Macron a response. Not with words, with gold mines, with rice factories, with 5,000 kilometers of roads per year, with a skyscraper rising in the Sahara, with Brazilian cattle genetics and sovereign chicken breeds, and apple trees growing at the edge of the desert. Macron did not expect this response. Nobody did. Welcome. This is Arisen Now. To understand the weight of Traoré's response, you need to understand the deal that Burkina Faso was trapped in for 60 years. When France granted independence to its African territories beginning in 1960, it did so with a very specific architecture of continued control. The CFA franc, the currency used across 14 West African nations, remained pegged to the French franc and later the euro, with France holding veto power over monetary policy. This meant that Burkina Faso could not print its own money, could not independently set interest rates, could not devalue its currency to make exports more competitive. Every major financial decision had to be cleared through Paris. Then there were the mining contracts. Burkina Faso sits on some of the most significant gold deposits in West Africa. For decades, the extraction of that gold was controlled by foreign corporations operating under terms that left the country with a fraction of the actual value. The gold left, the profits left, the foreign executives left. What stayed was the hole in the ground, and the roads, or the absence of them. From independence in 1960 until 2022, Burkina Faso built only 3,642 kilometers of paved roads. In 62 years, that is 56 kilometers per year, in a landlocked country the size of the United Kingdom. If you wanted to travel from Ouagadougou to the resource-rich north, you did not just pay with fuel. You paid with time, broken axles, and sometimes your life. The army could not respond to insurgent attacks because their trucks got stuck in the mud. The granary of the West, the Boucle du Mouhoun, could not supply the capital because the roads were impassable. And when a Burkinabe government wanted to build even 100 kilometers of highway, the process was the same every time. Apply for a World Bank loan, accept the conditions, award the contract to a foreign construction company. Watch them import their engineers, their machines, and sometimes their own foremen from abroad. Pay inflated prices, between 500,000 and $1 million per kilometer in West Africa. Walk away with a road and a debt that would take decades to repay. This was the system, and Macron's comment in 2017 was not an accident or a gaffe. It was the system expressing itself out loud. Your electricity is not our problem. Your roads are not our concern. Your poverty is your president's responsibility. Then the president changed. September 30th, Ibrahim Traoré and his Red Berets seized power. Western governments immediately labeled it a coup, a threat to democracy, a step backward. But Traoré looked at 60 years of the previous arrangement and asked a question that cut through all of that noise. What exactly was the democracy delivering? 3,000 kilometers of roads in 60 years. 70% of the nation's rice imported from Asia. Gold extracted by foreign corporations while citizens went hungry. A university with no electricity. Traoré did not come with speeches. He came with a doctrine. Endogenous development. Build it yourself, with your own resources, your own labor, your own people. His first moves were surgical and deliberate. He expelled the French military forces stationed in Burkina Faso. He revised the mining codes, demanding dramatically higher revenue from foreign extraction companies operating on Burkinabe soil. He nationalized key gold mining assets, redirecting the proceeds from European shareholder accounts back into the Burkinabe national treasury. And when Western governments warned him that this would isolate Burkina Faso from international finance, he said, "Good, we will finance ourselves." Then he proved it. Here is the number that changes the entire conversation. Over $300 million in farm equipment delivered to Burkinabe farmers, free of charge. Not a loan. Not a subsidized credit scheme with conditions attached. Free. 400 tractors in the first wave, 239 power tillers, over 700 water pumps. Then in May 2025, 608 more tractors. Equipment valued at nearly $180 million. All of it purchased with gold revenue that, in the previous system, would have flowed out of Burkina Faso entirely. Traoré confirmed this directly, standing in front of rows of gleaming machinery and telling the farmers gathered before him, "These tractors will plow your land for free. Our objective is true food self-sufficiency." When a U.S. general named Michael Langley went on camera in 2025 to publicly complain that the Burkina government was misusing its gold reserves, he was describing tractors given to farmers. That is what misuse looked like to the old system. A government using its mineral wealth to feed its own people, rather than servicing foreign debt. The gold that used to leave Burkina Faso in armored trucks heading to European processing facilities is now arriving in Burkina villages as agricultural equipment. The transaction is the same. The beneficiary has changed entirely. Now let's talk about those roads. The ones Macron said were not France's problem. In 2022, Traoré inherited a country with 3,642 kilometers of paved roads after 6 decades of independence. 56 kilometers per year under the old system. His target, 5,000 kilometers per year, not over 5 years, per year, 100 times the previous rate. And the strategy to achieve it was the same one he applied to agriculture: cut out the intermediaries. In a series of meetings with traditional chiefs, religious leaders, and civil society organizations, Traoré asked the question that had apparently never been asked directly before. If we have the gold, the gravel, the people, and the land, why are we paying foreign companies $2 to $3 million per kilometer to build our own roads? The answer he arrived at through first principles thinking was devastating in its simplicity. Most of the cost was profit margin being extracted by private construction firms. Remove the profit margin. Use military engineers who do not charge a margin. Use local materials. Mobilize citizen volunteers. The result? Cost reductions of 60 to 80% compared to foreign contractor bids. In late 2024, Traoré handed over 900 pieces of heavy machinery, bulldozers, graders, excavators, compactors, directly to the Brigade Nationale des Sapeurs, the military engineering corps. Chinese manufacturers XCMG and Sany supplied the equipment. Crucially, Traoré made clear these were not gifts from Beijing. They were purchased with Burkina Faso's own funds. The Faso Mayabo initiative, launched in October 2024, formalized this approach nationwide. By May 2025, the capital phase alone had paved over 9 kilometers of city streets. More than 100 kilometers of major highway contracts were simultaneously underway. What took previous administrations 6 years is now being executed in months. The roads Macron said were not France's problem are being built by Burkinabe soldiers, Burkinabe volunteers, Burkinabe engineers, with Burkinabe gold. But perhaps the most direct answer to Macron's entire worldview came not from a road or a building. It came from a rice field. For generations, Burkina Faso imported 70% of its rice, nearly 700,000 metric tons of Asian rice arriving every year just to keep the population alive. $75 million per year, flowing to French and Polish wheat exporters. $50 million per year buying powdered milk from European factories. The food dependency was not an accident. A nation that cannot feed itself cannot make free political decisions. Traoré understood this better than anyone. His words were direct. As long as we don't have food independence, we can't even talk about independence. Those who beg are always at the bottom. So he launched the Agro-Pastoral and Fisheries Offensive, a billion-dollar initiative funded entirely from domestic revenues. The results arrived faster than even the most optimistic projections suggested. In 2024, Burkina Faso produced 6 million tons of cereals, more than enough for the entire domestic population. Western agronomists had spent decades insisting that wheat could not grow in the Sahel. Climatically impossible, they said. Traoré launched an experimental wheat plot of 125 hectares in 2023. It worked. By 2024, the government had scaled to 1,342 hectares, yielding nearly 2,600 tons of domestic wheat. They are now building a 5,000-hectare wheat seed production bank to ensure they never have to import foreign seeds again. And by April 2026, Burkina Faso made an announcement that would have seemed like fantasy 3 years earlier. All rice imports from abroad halted, not reduced, halted, because they simply do not need foreign rice anymore. The pattern of Traoré's economic response to the old order follows a single consistent logic. Find every string of dependency, cut it, replace it with something Burkinabe. The CFA franc dependency, redirect gold revenues into sovereign investment rather than foreign debt servicing. The French military presence, expelled. Security partnerships rebuilt with sovereign terms. The foreign broiler chick imports from France and Belgium, costing over $1 million per year, banned in October 20. Burkinabe Agricultural Science then delivered the poulet faso, a hybrid chicken engineered domestically, reaching market weight in 10 weeks instead of 24, producing 200 eggs per year. The European powdered milk imports, replaced by Faso Cosum, a sovereign dairy network powered by 710 Brazilian cattle, imported specifically for their heat tolerance and high milk yield, now injecting 1.2 million liters of fresh local milk into the Burkinabe supply chain annually. The raw cashew nut exports that enriched foreign processors. A 2024 ban on raw shea nut exports forced local processing of finished goods. The $11.5 million SN Anna Trans factory in Bobo Dioulasso now processes 5,000 tons of cashew apples annually into concentrate, juice, wine, vinegar, and ethanol, with over 90% of its workforce being Burkinabe women. Every string cut, every dependency dismantled, every value chain brought home. This is not ideology. This is engineering. Let's speak in the language that the old system understands best. Numbers. Before Traoré, 56 kilometers of paved road per year. After Traoré, target of 5,000 kilometers per year, already exceeding previous records by a factor of 10 in active projects. Before Traoré, 70% of rice imported. After Traoré, all rice imports halted as of April 2026. Before Traoré, $75 million per year spent importing wheat from France and Poland. After Traoré, domestic wheat production underway, seed bank being established. Before Traoré, $50 million per year importing European powdered milk, despite owning 71 million livestock animals. After Traoré, Faso Cosum dairy network processing fresh local milk with Brazilian genetics. Before Traoré, over $1 million per year importing French and Belgian broiler chicks. After Traoré, foreign chick imports banned, poulet Faso hybrid engineered domestically. Before Traoré, less than 10% of 500,000 hectares of developable lowlands under cultivation. After Traoré, major irrigation perimeters operational, 6 million tons of cereals produced annually. Before Traoré, government ministries renting dilapidated colonial-era villas across the capital. After Traoré, the Burkindi Business Center, a 35-story glass tower with 2,000 office spaces under construction by a Burkinabe company. These are not projections. These are documented transformations happening right now. And Niger recorded GDP growth of around 7% in 2025 during its own wave of infrastructure development as a fellow member of the Alliance of Sahel States. The trajectory is real. The model is working. In 2017, a French president stood in Ouagadougou and told a student that his country's electricity was not France's responsibility. He was right. It never was France's responsibility. But for 60 years, the system France designed made it nearly impossible for Burkina Faso to take that responsibility itself. The CFA franc kept monetary policy in Paris. The mining contracts kept mineral profits in European accounts. The infrastructure loans kept construction contracts flowing to foreign firms. The food imports kept the country dependent on foreign supply chains. Every link in the chain was designed to extract, not to build. And then one young captain in a red beret said, "Enough." He did not write a manifesto. He nationalized a gold mine. He gave $300 million in tractors to farmers for free. He banned foreign chicken imports and engineered a domestic breed. He imported Brazilian cattle genetics and built a sovereign dairy network. He sent military engineers to build roads at 100 times the previous pace. He started growing wheat in a country that was told wheat was impossible. He halted all rice imports. He began building a 35-story skyscraper with a Burkinabe company using Burkinabe gold. And he is designing a billion-dollar canal to turn the Sahara into farmland. Macron said it was not France's job. Traoré agreed, and then he did it himself. That is the response nobody expected. Not a protest, not a speech, not a petition to the United Nations. A nation building itself from the ground up, with its own hands, its own resources, and an absolute refusal to wait for anyone's permission. This is what sovereignty looks like when it stops being a word and becomes a construction project. This is arisen now. Here is something the Western media will not tell you. Burkina Faso is no longer doing this alone. Mali and Niger, The two other nations of the Alliance of Sahel states are watching every single move Traoré makes, not as spectators, as students. When the Faso-Mayabo road-building model started producing results, costs slashed by 60 to 80%, military engineers replacing foreign contractors, citizens volunteering their labor and materials, both countries began studying the blueprint with serious intent. Niger recorded GDP growth of around 7% in 2025 during its own wave of infrastructure investment. The military engineering corps model Traoré pioneered in Burkina Faso is now being discussed as a potential replacement for foreign contractors across the entire Sahel. Think about what that means at scale. If three nations representing over 60 million people cut the profit extraction of foreign construction firms from their infrastructure budgets simultaneously, the financial flows that have bled West Africa for decades begin to reverse. The money that used to leave comes back. The roads get built faster. The food gets grown locally. The factories process what the farmers harvest. And the children of the Sahel drink milk from cows raised on Sahelian soil rather than reconstituted powder shipped from European factories. This is not a dream. It is already partially true, and it started with one man looking at a broken country and refusing to accept that brokenness as permanent. The rest of Africa is paying attention. Pan-African commentators are now citing Faso-Mayabo as one of the most concrete examples that self-reliance is not an ideological position. It is an engineering solution. You find the dependency. You calculate the real cost. You cut out the intermediary. You redirect the value to your own people. Repeat across every sector: agriculture, roads, housing, dairy, poultry, mining, until the nation that Macron dismissed with a joke about light bulbs is exporting processed goods to European supermarkets, which, by the way, is already happening. Some of the nut products sitting on shelves in European and American supermarkets right now were processed inside Burkina Faso. The country that was told it was too poor, too unstable, and too dependent to build anything of lasting value is now sending its finished products to the shelves of the countries that said so. That is the final answer. Not delivered in a press conference. Not announced in a UN speech. Delivered quietly, in a branded package, on a supermarket shelf in Paris. Traoré did not need Macron to fix the light bulbs. He needed Macron to stop blocking the switch. And now that the switch is in Burkina Faso hands, the lights are coming on. One factory, one road, one canal, one sovereign seed bank, one domestically engineered chicken, one Brazilian cow, one 35-story skyscraper at a time. The response is complete, and it is still being written.